Alright, so I already tried to do like a live first reaction, but it focused on a water bottle the whole time, so this is completely unscripted. I'm Rinald, and I'm gonna watch a PragerU video. I saw that there was like massive amounts of backlash to this, but honestly, when I saw that there was massive amounts of backlash to a PragerU video, didn't really care. Like, I was like, oh, they're all bad, like this can't be any worse, but fuck, it is worse. So I figured that it would be fun and funny to do a live reaction to this because it's completely fucking absurd. The video is about Robert E. Lee and why we should keep the statues of him up. Because of course it is, it's PragerU. So like they inherently try to like defend his character, but it's Robert E. Lee, so they obviously can't do that because it's fucking Robert E. Lee. So let's see why we should keep the statues up.
Who was Robert E. Lee? Statues of great historical figures, like Robert E. Lee, are being torn down across America. Here are some facts about Lee that remind us why his statue should remain. Robert E. Lee was connected to George Washington through his father, Light Horse Harry Lee, Washington's cavalry commander, and his wife, Martha Washington's great-granddaughter. Lee's home at Arlington House was just 10 miles from Washington's Mount Vernon. Today, it is the site of Arlington National Cemetery.
So we should keep this guy's statue up because he's distantly related to George Washington. And that doesn't make him good. Do you see statues of like George Washington's third cousin's grandchild, Steve?
Alright.
Do you see like the Steve Monument in Washington,
Alright,
D.C.? Just because they're distantly related to someone who was good doesn't mean that they are good. And also, like, have you ever seen like 23andMe? Like, everyone is distantly related to one person who was like really famous for being good. So like, unless you're gonna give fucking everyone a statue, that doesn't really mean that Robert should have a statue.
Lee led U.S. Marines to crush the attempted slave rebellion by radical abolitionist John Brown in October 1859.
Notice how it says radical abolitionist? It's radical to be against slavery.
21 co-conspirators had seized a federal armory, and all of them were killed or captured, including John Brown, who was tried and hanged for treason.
No one really argues that Robert E. Lee wasn't good at war, but like, when you're good at war to keep slavery, like, that's not really an achievement. That's not something that should be like praised, you know?
Yeah, John's a murderer, but like, you can't deny how good he is at it, so like, maybe put up a statue of him.
He was good at the war, but like, so was Hitler. Like, Hitler was really good at his job in World War I. You know why we still don't have statues of Hitler? Even though he was good at the war that he was in, he was a bad person fighting for bad things. So, you know, don't put a statue up of him, and don't put a statue up of Robert E. Lee either. Because they're bad people, even though they're good at certain things.
Lee deemed slavery a moral and political evil in any country, but considered it a greater evil to the white man than to the black race, since blacks are immeasurably better off here than in Africa. Opposing secession, Lee...
That's your point? So the reasons that we should keep the statue up is because he's distantly related to George Washington. He was good at the war to preserve slavery, and he wanted to get rid of slavery after the war because it negatively affected white people. You're really painting a good case. I definitely don't hate him more now.
No greater calamity for the country than a dissolution of the Union. But when Virginia seceded in a close vote, Lee resigned his commission. Despite offers to command Union forces, Lee opted to organize the defense of his native state. After 4 years as Confederate commander, Lee became an icon of reconciliation upon his surrender. As president of Virginia's Washington College, he favored education for freed slaves but opposed their right to vote.
You are really bad at making a case for this guy, dude. So, like, you can't say, oh, he was super in favor of education of free slaves, but he didn't want them to vote. Like, you can't do that. Like, he still fought to keep them in chains and didn't want them to vote afterwards, and then thought the only reason that it was bad for them to be in chains was because it affected white people poorly. You can't act like that's a noble thing. It's the same thing as like the nice guy trope. Like, yeah, it's good to be nice to women, but not so you can have sex with them. Like, yeah, it's good to be against slavery, but not because it affects the white race poorly. If your intention is to make me want to put up a statue of Robert E. Lee, you're failing miserably. Like, wow, that was the worst PragerU video I've ever seen. That was just all around fucking terrible. I literally can't find one single positive comment. Not one. This was awful. Like, I've never ever seen not one positive comment on a PragerU video, because generally they're pretty well accepted with conservatives, but like, even they think this is garbage. Hi, Editor Rinyald here to say, maybe the point that Prager was trying to make is that he's more historically important, and that these actions aren't necessarily good, but they're very historically important. And to that I say, so Hitler was too. I can bring that back out. So if you want to keep him up due to historical importance, then I can't wait until Dennis Prager sees all the Stalin statues that I'm going to build, because he was also very historically important. So if you weren't being hypocritical about this, you'd love the Stalin statues that I'm going to make. I'm Rinyald, Bunkuyo, whatever. Subscribe. I don't do the Hogan Rogan show anymore, but I edit stuff for Aaron now, and I'm going to be in one of his upcoming videos, so that's going to be fun. Yeah, I might stream at some point, because I've got this now. We'll see. And goddamn, Prager.